welcome to Psychic Holistic Spotlight. I'm your host, Josie Way, and co-hosting with me today is Mariah Almonte, and our guest is Nadine. She hails from the Cosmic Cat in Putnam, and she's a psychic medium who also does other things. Now, I have to ask, how did your store get its name?
Oh, well, I had many, many cats before I even opened my store, and I loved them. So I said, when I have this store, I want to put cat into the name of it. So I took a piece of paper, and I filled it with all different ideas and came to the Cosmic Cat. I wanted people to know that it was something different, that it was metaphysical, but I wanted to attract people like me who love animals and are attracted to that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So
yeah,
it worked.
The bulk of what you do is psychic mediumship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which can keep you busy
morning,
noon, and night.
Yes, it can, and it does, and it's great, and I love it. It's like they say, you know, do something you love, and you'll never have to work a day in your life.
Now, psychic work can be draining or very healing. Mm-hmm. You know, how do you keep it on the healing side, where you feel very well doing the work?
Actually, I've been doing it for so long. It started when I was 12, and I started actually doing readings for people when I was 14. So it was fun, and it's always stayed fun. So I've never really experienced being drained by it, you know? And people say, well, how do you protect yourself, and how do you, keep from getting drained? And I'm like, I've been doing it so long that it just is. It just is, and I love it. So yes, I do feel better after I've done readings than if I haven't done any for a while. I tend to even do them on vacation.
What do you like about it?
What do I like? Well, I think what's actually happening for me is that I'm in a sort of a meditative state. So I'm out there relaxing while whatever needs to come through comes through. Mm-hmm. So it gives me a break. Mm-hmm. And then, people give you credit for what you say. Mm-hmm. And they say, oh, you give such good advice. And I tell them, it's not really my advice, but it is good advice, and I do enjoy it. And I enjoy people feeling better after a session, and, being grateful. And so I'm helpful. In numerology, I'm a number 2, so I'm a helper, and that satisfies that aspect. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the need to work with others to accomplish results is part of what a number 2 is about.
Right. It's
always not everyone knows.
That's true, and I'm not an expert at numerology, but when I was young, I studied a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. I like to tell people that, the little booklets they have in the grocery store line? Those little booklets?
Yeah.
They've always been there. They used
to
be 25 cents.
And
yeah. So when my mother took me grocery shopping, I would ask her if I could have one of those when I was a little girl. So she figured, great, keep her busy while I do my shopping. So I learned about all those different things from those little tiny books. That's where it all started.
Well,
and you realized that you had a gift at that time.
Well, kids don't know they're different, really. Mm-hmm. You just think everybody's like you. Mm-hmm. So I didn't realize there was any kind of difference about me until I actually had an opportunity to do readings when I was 14. Mm-hmm. Want to hear that story? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I used to go to a Baptist camp in the summer. This was in Maine, and it was beautiful. It was right on the ocean in Ocean Park, Maine. And I loved it, and you got to spend 1 week in a cabin with other girls, usually 7 or 8 girls together of your own age. And then the camp would get together, you'd have your fun and arts and crafts and whatever. But during the middle of the session, the camp decided that it needed a fundraiser. So they decided to have a fair, and every cabin of children had to put together an event, a booth.
A booth.
So because I was playing with the cards and doing all this with my friends, they decided that wouldn't it be nice to have a booth where Nadine did readings? And that way they didn't have to do anything at all. So that's exactly what happened. And I just thought it was a game. I thought I was having fun. And the line got bigger and bigger, and the people were coming to me afterwards and telling me, wow, that was true, and how did you know that? So at 14, I realized something was going on.
Yeah, I know. I was between 12 and 14 when I realized that I didn't see the world the same way everybody else did.
There you go.
That it was a little different.
Right, right.
Only my experience was I needed to hide what was different.
Oh, well, everybody
Instead of
handles
being
it differently.
invited.
Yeah. Well, I was using my gift to get over shyness of being with other people. So I'd say, oh, well, I'll do a reading, and that way I didn't have to have a conversation or, do anything else. So I had something to do. It worked very nicely.
It's not just a conversation, it's a communion when you're doing a reading. You and another person are sharing with spirit. Now, usually when you do readings, they're family members and loved ones come through, and
there's a lot more of that now.
Or were there guides, and who usually comes to your clientele?
Okay, I describe my reading as a connection with all that is. And that's how it's always been. So whoever and whatever needs to come through comes through in that way. And for a long time, I didn't visualize a being of any type. It was more like, okay, here I am, tell me what I need to know. And then I heard about other people's experiences with guides and so on.
With guides? Okay.
Guides. And I started to realize I was getting guides, but I was getting them in a funny kind of way. And what it was, I remember I would sit down to a reading and shoes would come into my head. And I'd be like, everybody doesn't want shoes. What could this be? And when I heard about guides and people talking about guides, I realized that that was how my guide presented itself. And I had different guides over time. It was always somebody different. There was the train guide. It was like a train coming by, and there were the shoes and various other things like that. So I think that the most important thing that I've learned about people is that we're all different. We all experience these things in different ways, and if we try to do it the way somebody else does, we may fail and give up.
Yeah,
we have to stop thinking that way.
In psychology, they say people process different ways.
True.
There are auditory learners and visual learners,
Absolutely.
and then hands-on learners.
Right.
Well, the same is true with spirituality and releasing your gifts. That some people visualize things, as others hear things.
Right.
And some people just know things. Things pop into their head, and it's as if they had a Google machine up there,
Right.
that pops in and gives them information every so often.
Right. And for many of us, it comes in various ways, at various times, right?
Some people have an extremely heightened sense of smell,
Right.
and they'll smell tobaccos and different perfumes, and they're able to differentiate what they are.
Right. Right.
So when you were a kid, you didn't have organized thoughts. You didn't know about guides, etc. So you were. I'm just thinking, like, for myself, because I have a lot of thoughts, and it's how you've interested me in becoming more open to this.
Your own ability.
In other words, what thoughts come into my head and who I am. I need to sift through them.
Right.
And see which ones are the true ones that can be helpful, I guess.
Right.
So
people ask that all the time. How do I know the difference? Between a logical thought process and something that I've received. And it has a lot to do with attachment. You'll find that with the logical thoughts, we're attached and emotionally involved with them. But
There's
when we
some
receive
ego
a message,
involved.
right? And when we receive a message, it usually just comes through. Here it is.
I had an argument with a cousin. It was a long-standing feeling of resentment, and then our mutual uncle, passed away, and we're in the church, and I'm just sitting there, and I see my cousin go by, and the voice said, "Forgive him." like that. And I said, yes,
Yes.
I forgive you.
Yes.
And I went up to him like right away and said, I forgive you. And we hugged and that was
That's
it, over.
great.
It was
That's great.
amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
this big resounding voice.
That's one of the ways you know it wasn't you.
No,
Yes,
no.
clairaudience.
Cool.
You know, hearing
Yeah.
instead of seeing. And if you were
Yeah.
geared to, oh, I'm going to see a picture, you never would have paid attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So, and it's weird when you have to tell somebody that, you know, I heard that in my head because I could be thinking other things about you. But
Yeah.
it really is, and it's like a different voice, isn't it? It's not your own voice.
Resounding.
Yeah, and it doesn't happen that frequently. It only happens when it really needs to. Was it a male voice? That's cool. Have you had that too with the voice?
I hear regularly because that's
That's how you
and
work.
I also get kinesthetic, messages that will tell me the old thing of blink once for yes, blink twice for no, those kind of things. But I will get a kinesthetic awareness.
It's good that way, and you know yourself. Now you're just asking because you're just beginning or trying to figure it out.
No, I'm not just anything. It just happened here right now that these, like I have perception, not perceptions, I like a knowing.
Right. That's
and
exactly
so-
what I call it,
Yeah.
knowing. And mostly if you just let go and let it through, right? Rather than asking for it. I find that it's best. When I do my readings, people don't ask. I tell them, don't tell me anything, because even in a question there are answers, and you're learning things, and you don't really want to use a logical thought process, so you have to take that part of it out, at least for me, so that I can just give a pure message that has nothing to do with my brain thinking about what that person wants to know, right?
Well, I know in one or two circumstances I've been told that I needed to give a certain message, and I said, I can't do that. And I would bargain with, is there another way I can say this, or do it? And usually they would allow me to say it in my own way, that I didn't have to say it word for word. But I'll never forget when a very strongly worded one came through, and I was like, you can't expect me to say that. But in some cases, that's exactly how the long-lost relative would have spoken.
Yes, that's what you need. You need the vocabulary.
So I have had to say, well, they're telling me to say.
Yes, and you can say, I'm a little embarrassed, but this is exactly what I heard. That's okay. Most people understand. And even if you say to somebody, I don't know if I should say that, they'll most always say to you, please, whatever you have to say, I'd like to hear it. So,
Yeah.
works pretty well that way.
Now, do most of your clients come to you newly grieving a loss, or do they come on a regular basis feeling a need for guidance, or is it a mixture of both?
I have to say that when I first opened, it was mostly what I call the psychic reading. So it was mostly people wanting to know the future, wanting to know what's going on in the present, maybe wanting to find out something from the past. So it wasn't about spirits, and it wasn't about relatives. And I would, intersperse things every now and then, but not officially, because I think what's happened, I've been doing this for almost 20 years now in Putnam, and I think what's happened is that because of TV and just so many people opening up and saying, here I am, and this is what I do, now people are coming in and actually asking,
For mediumship.
Yes, and I'm very grateful to the Long Island Medium. I think it's wonderful what she's doing, because she's made so many people aware.
She's taken it out of the closet and
Yes,
into
yes.
the public arena.
Yes, and I was always grateful to Sylvia Brown. She was amazing, and she wrote so many books, and she just made everything so ordinary,
I'm fond of Doreen Virtue myself.
Oh, yes, and Doreen Virtue.
She's opened up a lot, too.
Right. So these people have pioneered, and now I see a big difference. I see so many people coming in and saying, I'd like to speak to somebody that passed. Can you do that? So it's a whole different thing. And I always ask at the beginning of a session, unless I forget to ask, but I almost always ask, do you want a psychic reading, or did you want to communicate with a loved one, or a combination. And I ask because there are people who come in who don't want to.
Yeah.
So
they don't want a mediumship.
That's
so
their choice.
A medium then, a medium.
A medium, generally speaking, we think of someone who communicates with your loved ones, but it doesn't really mean
someone
that.
who's crossed over.
Right, but technically, a medium is someone who brings through messages. It doesn't necessarily
mean... It could be
mean,
from angels, it could be from ascended masters.
Or just from the realm.
Yeah,
from
the
that's
spiritual
how I saw it.
realm.
Just from the realm, messages that come through.
Ascended masters as Jesus.
We've had someone on the program that communicates with Mother Mary. Yes, ascended masters like Jesus.
It all depends on the individual, and let's face it, we're the channel, okay? We're the vessel through which the information comes, and so the vessel has certain beliefs or experiences that will alter her perception of what is actually happening and how that message is coming through. So some people are very keen with angels and that, and other people not so much. So whatever your belief system is will affect how you perceive it, but not necessarily affect the message. The message will still be there.
Many years ago, when I was opening up, we tried this little thing in class, and each of us was to go into a meditation for a specific person. And it turned out the messages that we gave overlapped each other in what they meant, but we all saw it or heard it in an entirely different way.
Exactly.
But it came out with the same message.
Information. Right.
And it was really fascinating.
Does a client's desire to receive information cause the information to come through?
I never thought of that, but I will say that some people make it easier for you to read than others, and believe it or not, the ones that make it easier are the ones that don't speak. Because once somebody starts talking, even the people who are so hungry for the information that they'll say everything is true. You'll say something and say, oh, I have a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend like that. And I'll say, no. The message comes through. If you don't recognize it right now, take it with you. So, no, not necessarily, right? I had a detective one time that I read for, and he was great because he knew enough to say, yes, go on, and make me feel comfortable about what I was doing, but he didn't give me any clues. He didn't give me anything to make me go in any specific direction. And then at the end, he told me where, what I had said,
what it meant,
was true and real, and then went on from there, and actually came back a month later telling me that it was spot on. So that was nice. It was nice to have somebody encouraging. Yes, encouraging. I generally don't read a challenge. I know that some psychics love it, but I'm not one of those people that wants to be necessarily challenged. If somebody is interested and curious and doesn't know whether they believe or not, that's fine.
Different. Yeah.
Right.
Rather than somebody who wants to see just how far.
You don't have to convince anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, and since I'm doing all the talking and the reading.
Well, I had one person that I said, let me do a reading for you. And they were, I don't know. I said, it won't take long. Just sit down here. And this is when I was first, opening up about doing readings. And I looked at him after 5 minutes and I said, you don't have to worry. You put up a very good block.
There you go.
I can't read anything. And I just let it go with that.
Right. And you do have to be careful because people do get a little bit nervous coming in for a reading, and whatever you say gets amplified, And if you say something, I found this out, if you say, I really can't do this reading right now, only once, I said, I can't do this reading, the customer misinterpreted and thought there was something wrong. And I kept trying to assure her there was nothing wrong, that I just
That you were
wasn't
seeing
feeling well that day,
that you were
actually.
seeing something,
Yeah, that's what they thought.
in their future or in their lives.
Right, and it really was nothing to do with her. I just was not feeling well and didn't feel up to having any kind of conversation. But she called back, and I just told her, I said, really.
we can reschedule.
Yeah, exactly. But, you do have to be a little careful about how people take what you say.
What would you say to somebody who's noticed that they have some gifts and they want to increase them, about perhaps encouraging them to go to some classes, different things? Where should they start?
Well, what I've done, what I found to be extremely helpful, and work with people who
Besides the little books.
Oh, yeah, the little books. That was fun for me. But meditation. And what I do is I have ongoing meditation classes with a group of people where we just continue to have our half an hour or 45 minutes once a week and give the sixth sense an opportunity to grow. And I explain to them, it's just like when you go to the gym. You're not going to go twice and have a bicep. It's not going to work. So you have to just keep going, and then one day you'll notice that when you pick something up, it's easier and that you can lift more. So the same thing with having a meditation. I do a meditation class that I designed to help people to get their sixth sense energized. And you'll notice over the course of the week, after doing this, that your perception changes.
So
your feeling
you set
about
an intention for the meditation?
What I do is I give a sort of a lecture on the first class, explain why it works, what's going on, and then we just exercise. We sit still, and we let whatever wants to come through. We write it down, and then we go home and have our week. And then the following week we do it again. So you're basically just giving yourself the opportunity to expand that part of your knowing, and sort of step over the five senses and logic and the brain activity and all that, so that the other part has an opportunity, where all day long it doesn't have that much of a chance to get through.
Now, what about, we know of people that just can't seem to meditate. There are various forms of meditation.
You're right. And the form that I use is to just sit and be. And anybody can just sit, basically close their eyes and be quiet for a little while. And that's all they need to do. And it works perfectly fine. Because, like I said, you're giving the other side an opportunity to come through by not accessing the other part of yourself.
So turn off your cell phone.
Well, we do it. We go into alpha every day, right? I do it when I'm driving. Don't tell anyone, but no, really. We all do. We space out. It's like, how did I get here? You're driving along, and then here I am, or you're watching TV, and you didn't even see the commercial, but your face was directed right at the TV, right? Where were you? You were in alpha. And that's where it happens. That's where our psychic gift really gets to be energized and enjoys itself. So we just take that and we do it for half an hour instead of the 5-minute commercial or the 10-minute drive. And it's the same type of experience that we're going to have.
Only it's a little safer.
Oh, it's a lot safer. It's a lot safer. And it's fun when you're in a group, to share what you get with each other, too.
Yeah.
So in other words, you don't say to the group like tonight, just ask what you want to receive. Like, I would like to focus on.
That comes later.
Oh, okay.
That comes
Be
later.
more open. And
what I find is that people do really well if you don't actually ask anything specific from them. Because when you do, then it becomes like a class, and one person's going to be better than the other, and so on and so forth. This way, everybody gets what they get, and there's no competition.
Just the sitting still might be an accomplishment.
That's what it is. It's the sitting still. It does it, and it's great, and people really enjoy it. Because when do you have a chance to sit still? I know I don't very often. So
now, you had mentioned earlier that you also, when you're working with people, use other things like past life regressions.
Yes, I do. And I was going to say, I also do psychic development classes. So that's a step after meditation class. And we would set intentions, and we would try doing different things. We do a little bit of psychometry, you know. Oh, that was so much fun when I did a psychic development class one time.
I forget what psychometry is.
Okay,
Is
psychometry
that
is when
moving?
you touch something and you feel the vibrations from that
Okay.
object.
Yeah.
So I had various things in little boxes, and I passed them out, and they're like, oh, we can't do this. This is, we'll never know what's inside these boxes. And I had sort of done it at the last minute. I was very busy, and so I put the boxes together at the last minute, and I passed them out. And I can remember 2 of the boxes. I'm not really as clear on one of them, but I wish I had it with me right now. It was the strangest little thing. And the girl who had that particular box said, she says, I don't know what this is, but I keep seeing the strangest thing in my mind. She said, I keep seeing a little red sandal, like what do you call those, thongs?
Thongs, yeah.
Whatever. She says, I keep seeing that, and it's little and it's red, but that can't be in this box.
Yeah.
And what it was a little bottle opener, a little red bottle opener that looked exactly like a little red
sandal.
Yes, it did. And she was so amazed. And then another one said, she said, she says, I'm not getting what's in this box, because all I get is money. She says, and she's feeling the box, it's only about this big. And she says, there's nothing in here. I can't. She says, nothing. I said, open the box. And she took out a folded up dollar bill. It was great. It was great. And see, these aren't people who do readings all the time or psychic things all the time. They were just people who sat still for a while, week after week. I think their class was about 6 months, of doing the extended meditation. And it just happened. They weren't trying, they weren't studying. It was just there because it's there for us all. It's natural, it's inside us all.
We all can do it,
Right. We're all connected.
I mean, someday, hundreds of years from now, they're going to say, would you believe with all these things that we can do all the time, people thought they were special gifts?
Right.
And they're just normal parts of the human evolvement.
Right. It's how we operate. We operate in 2 different operating systems. One is spirit, and one is the brain and logic.
One is infinite, and one is finite.
Right. Right. But why do we live mostly in the finite?
Training.
Because the body is a high maintenance thing that we have to spend a lot of time taking care of.
Yeah. Well, we think we do, but I think we're evolving to a different place where it will happen a different way.
Yes. I think it will become more of ask and you shall receive.
Absolutely.
With the affirmations that we make.
What do you mean we're evolving to a different time, a different place?
Well, like she said, we're crossing into an understanding that we're all spiritual creatures, and that we're all connected, and that all information is ours, right? And we're not there yet because we're still working in the first operating system, which is limited.
But we're transcending into the spiritual.
We seem to be. We seem more aware of it. More people are, getting there. So.
Yeah. We only have a few moments left.
Okay.
So I want to thank our audience and my staff and crew. And thank you for joining us. And if there's anything you could say in our last minute about where to get started, either doing this or getting the courage to go and get a reading.
Oh, well, what I always say is, don't forget that at least if you come to me, a reading is fun. Okay, it's helpful, it's healing, it's all those things, and it's positive. And my philosophy is, if you come into my store, I won't let you leave feeling any worse than when you walked in. So it has to be a positive experience.
Yeah.
And I would say a spiritual one also.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
So What's wrong with that?
How can you go wrong?
Yeah, right.
There you go.
Yeah, it's, I find them refreshing and a reading. So go challenge yourself,
Right.
have a reading.
And be creative.
Absolutely.